Good evening. I will reconvene in open session this meeting of the Arlington ISD Board of Trustees for August 1st, 2024, beginning at 6:40 p.m. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Our board meetings are open to the public, and we welcome everyone and thank you for participating in public education. While our meetings are open to the public, this is a meeting and we do have business to conduct. Disruptions will not be permitted. Anyone who disrupts the meeting or speaks when others are speaking may be asked to leave or may be escorted out by security attending the meeting. We welcome civic input, but insist that we remain respectful and civil. Thank you for your cooperation. And now we will start with our opening ceremony. Please join Ms. Fowler in leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
At this time, we'll ask that you please double check that you've silenced all of your cell phones and electronic devices to avoid disruptions to those around you. And now, please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. The first item on our agenda tonight is our open forum for agenda items. Ms. Crossnow, do we have any speakers registered for this evening? Having no speakers, we will move on to our next agenda item, administrative appointments and ratifications. Do we have a motion to approve the ratification for the deputy superintendent as discussed in executive session? I have a motion from Vice President McMurrow. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Ms. Fowler. We will move to a vote. The vote is 7-0. Vote is unanimous. We will now welcome our new Deputy Superintendent, Dr. Smith.
I'm the superintendent. I get to welcome the new deputy superintendent. Let's give a round of applause for Dr. Jennifer Collins, please. Jennifer comes to us with experience in multiple school districts across the state of Texas, in curriculum, in elementary schools and middle schools. We are extremely excited to have her here. She's joining us from Highland Park ISD and has joined us mid-July. So Ms. Collins, Dr. Collins, excuse me.
All right. Thank you, President Chapa, Board of Trustees, and Dr. Smith. I'm so excited about the opportunity to get to be here in Arlington. I've gotten to be boots on the ground already the last couple of weeks and have attended some professional learning sessions with some of our newest educators. I've been able to attend the Taste of Arlington and see our students at work and sit in on a couple of meetings that have happened with our district level teams, and it's just been very, very exciting, and I'm ready to get started with the work here in Arlington. I also want to thank my husband. Jason is here tonight, so thankful for the support of my family. My two youngest are out on the marching band practice field right now because marching band has started today, so it's very, very exciting. But thank you for the opportunity to be here in Arlington.
I also neglected to mention she is also a graduate with a master's degree from UTA, University of Texas at Arlington, so she does know a little bit about the community as well. So please, again, welcome Dr. Collins to us.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to our second round of administrative ratifications for this evening. Do I have a motion to approve the administrative ratifications as discussed in closed session? I have a motion from Secretary Richardson. Do I have a second? Second. I have a second from Mr. Mike. It's a motion by Secretary Richardson and a second by Mr. Mike. We'll move on to a vote. The vote is 7-0. The administrative ratifications are unanimously approved. Dr. Smith.
Trustees, we have quite a few new team members to welcome here tonight, and getting us kicked off, please welcome our new assistant principal at Arlington High School, Thomas Flagg, up to the podium.
All right, thank you very much, President Chapa, Board of Trustee members, and Superintendent Dr. Smith. I am Thomas Flagg. I am definitely excited to continue learning and leading within the Arlington Independent School District. Joining me tonight, I do have my spouse and my best friends over here behind me. I also have my gold and blue family from Gunn, and gold and blue together makes green, and now I am a proud member of Arlington High School. Thank you.
And next we have the new P-Tech assistant principal for Lamar High School, Tyree Williams. Come on up.
Good afternoon, President Chapa, members of the board, Dr. Smith. I'd like to thank you for this incredible opportunity to serve as the P-Tech administrator at Lamar High School. I'm honored to continue to support teachers that are so dedicated to the future of our students. P-Tech program represents a pivotal step in bridging education with real-world careers, and I'm excited to contribute to that success. I'm thankful for the support and trust of the high school learning community, Dr. McDonald, Dr. Jarko, and my campus principal, Mrs. Maroney. Last but certainly not least, I'd like to thank my family who is here, my husband at the back, my mom. My dad is en route, but he'll miss it tonight. But I am very grateful for the opportunity to continue to serve in this capacity and look forward to continuing to champion our children for equity for all.
Next, we have two new assistant principals for Workman Junior High, and the first that we'll introduce tonight, Latasha Collins. Welcome.
Good evening, President Chapa, members of the board, and Dr. Smith. Thank you so much for the privilege and opportunity to be here. My mom always said that education was our way out of poverty. And as a first-generation kid from a Jamaican immigrant family, I am so grateful for the privilege to give as much, if not more, than what's been given to me. Thank you to my family, my sisters here, Lachey, and my close friends, Alexis and Janine. Thank you to Jacob Stainbrook, Grace Jackson, and Yoshi of Sustain Ed Leaders, Dr. Griswaldi, Milan, and Roxanne of Aspiring Leaders program as well. Thank you, Dr. Maston and Ms. Blue Allen at Sam Tassie Middle School, who took the first chance on me. And thank you, Dr. Fogelman and team, hey. Dr. Fogelman, Dr. Dalla, Dr. McDonald also for taking a chance on me. Doing good work with longevity is challenging, but with a community like mine and my belief in God who ordains my steps, I believe my team and I at Workman Junior High are going to surpass our goals this year. Thank you.
We've got another Workman Junior High assistant principal to welcome. Please welcome Ms. Mira Healy to the podium.
So, President Chapa, members of the board, and Dr. Smith, thank you so much for this amazing opportunity. A super special thanks goes to my husband, Mike, who is here, and my two boys, Marshall and Mitchell, for their support and patience, especially during this last year as I completed my residency and earned my degree. Thank you so much to Laura Thurston, Grayson Toperzer, Amber Price, Aisha Ramos, and now Dr. Aaron Fogelman, all principals who saw my potential and helped me to grow. And stretch me out of my comfort zone. Thank you to Jennifer Fuller and Dr. McDonald for the opportunities to build my leadership skills. Thank you to my Owsley family, to my Peach family, and I'm so excited to work with my Workman family. And last, thank you to Randa Harris, Camilla Sanchez, and Aaron Helm, who were kind and understanding as I started experimenting with being a leader. I cannot wait to see what this adventure brings me.
It's my pleasure now to welcome the assistant principal for Young Junior High, Courtney Boyd.
Good evening, President Chapa, members of the board, and Dr. Smith. Thank you so much for this appointment and this time to thank the village that surrounds me. As a proud product of Arlington ISD and now a proud employee of Arlington ISD for 15 years, I've been blessed to have many amazing leaders pouring into me throughout my career, some that are in this room tonight. My principal, Kirsten Lundeen, my former principal, Stacy Humbles, and our amazing Assistant Superintendent, Dr. McDonald. Thank you all for your leadership. Also here with me is my amazing village of family and friends. To my wonderful husband, Michael, and 3 beautiful kids, Peyton, Paige, and Paxton, thank you for always putting up with me, but also for being by my side through it all. To the rest of my family and friends, thank you for always encouraging me and never letting me give up. To my Eagle family, I am so excited to be back home at Young Junior High. Once an Eagle, always an Eagle. Thank you.
Please join me in welcoming our new assistant principal for Patrick Elementary, Veronica Salinas.
President Chapa, members of the board, and Dr. Smith, thank you for this incredible opportunity to serve as assistant principal of Patrick Elementary. I'm deeply honored and look forward to contributing to the school community and working alongside such a talented and dedicated team. And speaking of team, I want to send a special thanks to my favorite team, my husband, James, who's here tonight, and my children, Jimmy, Sophia, and Navy. Thank you for always believing in me and for cheering the loudest. I didn't think I was going to cry, I'm sorry. I also want to thank the leaders who encouraged me along this journey and just provided lots of support, especially Dr. McDonald, and, dressed for the part, so thank you for that, teaching me that. I also want to thank all the friends and family who could join me here tonight, my brother Ricky, who's a pre-K teacher also here in Arlington, and then special friends, one of my best friends, Monica Leal, who is an instructional coach here. Lastly, I want to thank my dad in heaven and my mom, and I'm going to say in Spanish if it's okay, por su apoyo, su amor, su inspiración, and always instilling in me que sí se puede. Gracias.
Let me turn the microphone on. Now please join me in welcoming our new assistant principal for Peach Elementary, Erin Mosley.
President Chapa, members of the board, and Dr. Smith, thank you for this amazing opportunity to not only serve as the new assistant principal at Peach, but also to thank the people who got me here. First and foremost, I want to thank my fiance Lauren for taking on everything and holding it down, holding the house down while I was away, going through this residency program and completing my master's degree. So thank you. You were there through every tear and every cheer, so thank you. Next, I would like to thank my amazing Shark family at Shared Elementary. You welcomed me in with open arms last year. You built capacity in me as a leader and made sure that I left equipped with the skills I needed to be an assistant principal. I will be forever grateful for the opportunities I had as a Shared Shark. Last but certainly not least, I would like to thank everyone at Peach Elementary. My journey in AISD actually began at Peach in 2016. I was part of the inaugural staff there when it opened. And my leadership journey began with Dr. Stephanie Lee asking me to be on the Holdsworth team. And so it kind of kicked off from there. And along with Principal Aisha Ramos, they continued to build capacity in me, and alongside the other Peach staff, pushed me to apply for this Aspire residency program, where I had the honor of being mentored by Dr. Lena McDonald, as I continued to be poured into as a leader. Needless to say, I'm grateful for everyone who is a part of my journey to be able to be standing here tonight, and I am so excited to be back serving the community of Peach Elementary as their new assistant principal.
It's now my pleasure to welcome our new assistant principal for Pope Elementary, Yolanda Riley Rayleigh.
President Chapa, members of the board, and Dr. Smith, I am happy to be here today for this wonderful opportunity. I would like to thank Dr. Buell and Dr. Morales for seeing the leader in me. My former principals, Ms. Maroney, who's now at the high school, Ms. Lopez, Ms. Kilgore, Ms. Broughton, for pouring into me over the years. My newly appointed principal, Ms. Dunlap, who has came in and we have been hitting the ground running. I appreciate my Pope Panther family for coming out and supporting me today. And lastly, my family, my husband who's back over there, Londell, my son Victor, my sister Charlene, and my nephews who always are in my corner. I am ready to continue to serve here in Arlington ISD, and thank you so much for this opportunity.
And last but not least, our new assistant principal at Spear Elementary, Albert Becerra. Come on, Albert.
Thank you. President Chapa, members of the board, Dr. Smith. First and foremost, I'd like to say thank you for allowing me this amazing opportunity to return back to Arlington ISD. This is where I essentially grew in my role as an administrator. I'd like to say thank you to my familia at Carter Junior High School for fostering that growth as an administrator. I'd like to also say thank you to Dr. Lee, Dr. McDonald, Ms. Zavala, Ms. Diaz, the ILT, and the rest of the teachers and staff at Spear Elementary for welcoming me with open arms, and I look forward to the learning and growing that we're going to do at Spear. I look forward to showing our students that they can reach for the stars. Most importantly, I'd like to thank my wife, Beatriz, a proud SAM alumni, my daughter, Aria, an incoming Corey Cub, and my son, Benjamin. I'd like to thank my mother and family for watching online and for their ongoing support. We are fortunate that Arlington ISD has become our home, and it's great to be back. Thank you again.
President Chapa, trustees, now you know why we're excited for the future in Arlington ISD. Please join me in giving our new teammates one more round of applause.
Congratulations to all the appointees. We're going to take a brief recess. You can step outside. There's places to take photographs, and we'll give you an opportunity to mingle and congratulate each other. The trustees will come and join you as well. Trustees, let's try to be back on the dais at about 10 minutes or so. We'll take a recess at 6:57. We'll reconvene at 7:12, and we'll move on to our reports for the evening. We only have one report tonight, an accountability update from Dr. Lopez. I'll turn it over to Dr. Smith.
Trustees, as we welcome Dr. Lopez up to present tonight, I asked Natalie to present to us. I think there's some significant information that we need to continue to share with our community and with our trustees. The state of accountability has been shifting in Texas, and we need to make sure that we constantly talk about this and share this message with our constituents. So tonight, Natalie is going to be presenting to you just an overview of changes that we have seen in the accountability system over the past few years. This does not include data right now. As you all know, the data from TEA has not been publicly released yet regarding accountability information. This is a precursor to us talking about that data in upcoming meetings to make sure that we all have the same background of the ever-shifting accountability system in the state of Texas. So Dr. Lopez, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, sir. President Chapa, members of the board, and Dr. Smith, thank you for the time. I'll provide the accountability update. And so the purpose is to provide a review of changes to the state of Texas assessments of academic readiness, the STAR, and the A to F accountability system since 2019, and the anticipated impact to the A to F ratings assigned to the Arlington Independent School District. So what I'll cover and kind of try to go sequentially and then by category is impacts of COVID-19 on the 2020 and 2021 school year, accountability changes in 22, assessment changes in 23, accountability changes in 23, other changes in 24, and then do a reminder about TEA's What If that was published fall of 23. So I'm going to go through this in a timeline. So again, kind of in sequential order, both categories, assessment and accountability. And then I'm going to kind of chunk into specific, more granular aspects of assessment and then move into aspects of accountability. So just kind of give you an idea of what's coming. So kind of putting the timeline of changes with assessment and accountability all on one visual. We'll start with 2019 school year. So the STAR 1.0, that was the original STAR before the redesign, and the original A to F, which was always scheduled to be a 5-year accountability cycle, 2018 through 2022. So that was kind of 2019 school year was sort of the last normal year where we didn't have change somewhere. So going into 2020, obviously, global pandemic, and didn't come back from spring break. STAR was canceled. No ratings were assigned. There's no A to F. That was canceled. Then we moved into the 2021 school year. Some students were in person. Some were virtual still. And but we administered STAR, again, that original STAR. No A to F was calculated that year. It was canceled, and no ratings were assigned. A large portion of A to F is growth, and since there was no testing in 2020, there was no way to calculate growth, no way to kind of work around that in a quick manner, so no A to F in 2021 either. 2022, just kind of 2 years from the massive upheaval, and we administered STAR again with expectations for participation, and then we did TEA did A to F partially. So they released A through C ratings, but any campuses or districts that were a D or F, they were assigned a not rated label. So kind of a partial A to F in that year. And then 2023 was, just last year, it was the redesigned STAR with the online administration requirement, in addition to the A to F refresh. And so that was kind of an unprecedented change to have both a change to assessment and a change to accountability in 1 year. And so that's kind of why that's highlighted, that accented coral. And then that brings us to the last little section there, 2024, which is the school year we just wrapped up. And that was still the STAR redesign, online administration, and the A to F refresh. And we had the rules this year on time, so that was great. I'm going to go kind of down into each year specific changes. So I kind of went over the categories of assessment and accountability. So we're going to take a glimpse into each year, starting with 2020. So again, cancellation of spring STAR administrations, the STAR end of course exam requirements, the passing requirements to graduate, those had to be waived. And again, all districts and campuses labeled not rated declared state of disaster. So that's 2020. Moving into 2021, campuses were expected to offer and encourage STAR participation as it would be needed the next year to calculate growth in 2022. The AISD rate was 81% and the state rate was 83%. So did a pretty good job of kind of coming back and getting kids tested, especially with addressing all of the social, emotional, mental, other challenges beyond academic. All districts and campuses labeled not rated declared state of disaster. However, accountability reports were provided, just no calculations of growth, because again, we didn't take a test the year before. There was nothing to calculate growth from. No domain scores, no scale scores, so it was kind of bare bones. And then military enlistment data was no longer included in the college career and military readiness calculation. There was some data validation issues there, and TEA acknowledged that, and so they removed military enlistment from CCMR. So then in 2022, CCMR had another change because they included a new assessment, the TSIA2, So that was just an opportunity in order to help us earn CCMR points. There was the reintroduction of the 95% participation requirement for us to give our reading and math assessments. If you don't reach 95%, you're pretty much kind of dinged in domain 3, that kind of concept of the false failure that we've discussed in prior meetings. The English language proficiency determination for making progress on the TELPAS, which is the language proficiency test, which is also used in A to F. That was altered to allow for additional prior year comparisons to 2022 because of the acknowledgement of the fact that a lot of kids were not getting tested for TELPAS in 21. They didn't come back from spring break in 2020. So if they didn't test before spring break, they didn't have 2020 data. They actually even went all the way back to 2019 in order to try and figure out some sort of growth to be able to use in accountability. So that was a change. That we don't do that anymore. That was just a temporary change for the 2022 school year. And then there was assignment and publication of A to F accountability ratings, A through C. Again, if you had an overall score lower than a 70, whether you were a campus or a district, you didn't receive a D or an F. You just received not rated, Senate Bill 1365. So then 2023, again, was that year where we had a lot of change. So the assessment changed. So that STAR redesigned, STAR 2.0, no longer a multiple choice test, but we now, the test had technology enhanced items, cross-curricular passages, evidence-based writing. So the reading test was also reading and writing, online administration. And the A to F refresh occurred, and just a refresh, although it introduced changes to all domains but one, and the overall district methodology. A to F manual was not released during the school year. So the accountability rating system, the rules were not known during the school year. It wasn't published during the 23 school year. Campuses and districts didn't know the rules or the methodologies used to determine the ratings. And then because of that, assignment and publication of those ratings ended up getting postponed due to a lawsuit that was brought against TEA by just various districts across the state. And we still don't have the 23 ratings. I want to kind of take a step out of the visual here because there's a timeline in 2023 that I didn't want to cram onto the little bubble there. So just bear with me on this. And so on May 19th of 2023, so almost the end of the 23 school year, that's when the preliminary A to F accountability manual was released. So nothing final, it was preliminary. Hey, these might be the rules. On June 27th, preliminary EOC results with performance levels were released. Recall that the test had just been redesigned, and it takes time to equate and determine the new performance levels for that redesigned test. So we did get that information on June 27th, just for EOC. Fast forward a little bit to the end of the summer, August 11th, final assessment results for A to F accountability for STAR 3 through 8 with performance levels was released. So the kids took that test April, maybe that first week of May, and then they found out how they did in mid-August. September 12th, to the administrator announcement was made regarding the delay to the release of the A to F manual due to an investigation of the applicability of the 2019 and 2022 baseline for growth cut points. I'm going to pause on that one because districts were surveyed asking for what they would recommend for how growth should be calculated in the A to F refresh. And for Arlington, we submitted 2019 only. We acknowledged that 2022 was an anomaly year with inflated growth. Therefore, to use that, even if you average it with 2019, would still set unrealistic expectations for the next 5 years. That growth was not anticipated to be linear due to how we performed in 21. And so TEA proceeded with the 2019 and 22 average, and then they kind of backed off of that and realized, hey, that might not be a good idea. So that's why they said, hey, we're going to hold off on the manual release. We need to look more into this. October 31st, 2023. So in the 24 school year, the final 2023 A to F accountability manual was published. November 7th, 2023, the final 2022 What If A to F accountability rating was posted. I'm going to talk about that what if towards the end of the presentation, but just in the 24 school year, the 2022 what if was posted. And then November 14th, underlying data for the 23 A to F accountability was posted in Teal, the Texas Education Agency login. And then, I mean, we're still waiting on the release of, that's just pending, those 23 A to F ratings. So I kind of needed to zoom out to give you that chronological look at the 2023 refresh timeline. So now we'll pop back into the visual, and then that brings us to 2024, the school year that we just wrapped up. STAR 2.0, online administration. We saw it in 23, experienced it again in 24. Acknowledged that there was decreases at the approaches level in most subjects and grades across the state of Texas. So basically passing rates decreased. TEA introduced an automated scoring engine for grading the written responses. So that was no longer done by humans. And then the A to F refresh rules for 2023, those remain fairly consistent with minimal changes. The A to F manual was released during the 24 school year, and assignment and publication of A to F accountability ratings is anticipated in 2 weeks on August 15th. So that's just kind of the timeline of both assessment and accountability. We'll kind of look specifically into assessment changes. So going from the STAR to the STAR redesign, the 2.0, the bulleted changes there on the left. So there was the addition of evidence-based writing to all reading language arts tests. So basically that test became a reading and writing test. So in 2022 it was reading. 2023 is reading and writing. In 23, 100% online administration unless you had a medical reason that you needed to take it on paper. Sometimes the mode can impact the student. So, I mean, however, the requirement is there. New question types, so going from that multiple choice to those technology enhanced items. And I believe y'all have seen some of the examples of those, the drag and drop and the hotspot, the multi-select, et cetera. So various technology enhanced items added onto the test beyond multiple choice. The multiple choice questions were capped to where they cannot account for more than 75% of the points on the test. There is now cross-curricular reading passages, so it's not just maybe a fiction or a nonfiction excerpt on the reading. It was cross-curricular, so it's related to some other TEK that they had learned in another subject, maybe science or social studies. And then there was an update. This is not STAR, but there was an update to TELPAS on the writing domain. So an assessment change, just not a STAR assessment change. However, TELPAS is also in A to F. So just kind of a look at, this is some of that same information, but just side by side. So you can see how in 22 is paper and online, and 23 with the 2.0 it's online. 22 is multiple choice, 23 became multiple choice in TEIs. 22 is number of test items, and then 23 number of points, et cetera. Those things that we just kind of went through. The one thing, or two things that we didn't discuss on the last slide that, so writing used to be scored by humans, and writing was at the 4th and the 7th grade level, English 1 and English 2. Writing is now a piece, short constructed responses and extended constructed responses on reading, science, and social studies tests. And 100% of those are graded by the ASE, the automated scoring engine. And then at least 25% of those will kind of a subset basically come out and then get graded by humans, kind of validation of the automated scoring engine, the computer, with how the human would rate those. So there's an effort to ensure some validity there. The writing portion on 4th and 7th had fewer and then less rigorous writing score possibilities. And so now on STAR 2.0, there's more. It's a larger range, 0 to 10. And it's more rigorous writing score categories. So like before, you couldn't earn a 0 on the writing. It was, even if you wrote nothing, you'd get a 1 at least. So 0 wasn't even an option in prior years. So anyhow, those are changes kind of side by side there. Those are assessment changes. We'll now move into accountability changes, and there's going to be a few more slides here. So this is 2023 refresh, just refreshing y'all on the refresh because I believe we've talked about some of these things. So CCMR, this impacts domain 1 and 3. Select industry-based certifications were phased out, and then limited credit was awarded for completion. So if districts exceeded a certain percentage of those IBCs that were going to be phased out, they got capped, and you couldn't receive the points even though the student earned the point in 2022 when it was an option. There was an increase in college, career, and military readiness achievement expectations as far as scaling. So, for example, the cut point in domain 1 for CCMR increased dramatically in 1 year. So to achieve an A, the cut point moved from 60% in 22, the original A to F, to 88% in 23. So that's a 28% increase. And again, 2023 accountability is looking back at the class of 2022. So that those students already graduated. So kind of finding out some of those refreshes to CCMRs, like the rule change after the game. And so this lovely visual of kicking a field goal and getting those 3 points. You put in interventions, areas of focus in order to boost CCMR attainment. And you did that for the class of 2022. Those students graduated. Well, those students that get used in 2023, we find out that there's new standards, the goalpost moved. We no longer got a field goal, but we can't call the kids back out and replay the game because they've graduated and moved on in life. So yeah, that's kind of similar to changing the rules of the game after the game is over. So domain 2A. So there was a refresh on calculating growth using a transition table, which basically is using a categorical measure as opposed to the progress measure, which would have been a continuous variable. Additionally, with growth, it now became available to a larger set of students. So 8th graders that took a reading test now were eligible, when they were in 9th grade for English 1, we were able to now look at their 8th grade reading test and they were able to earn growth. Students that are testing in different languages, prior they could not earn a growth point or even be considered in the denominator, but now they can since the measure became categorical. First-time testers, if they're in the same accountability cycle, they now can be included. So that's basically English 1 and English 2. Like, so if you missed your English 1 test your 9th grade year and then you came back and you took it in June, in the summer, on the retest. So you took English 1 in June, and then you go into your sophomore year and you take English 2 in April, when you're supposed to. That's actually the same accountability cycle. June gets included in that upcoming spring administration. And before, that child wouldn't be considered for growth, but now they can be. So just a larger denominator of students in the growth category. And then the option of the accelerated learning bonus. So students that did not meet in the prior year, if they end up reaching growth and passing the test, they don't just earn the 1 point for growth, they earn 1.25 points. There was some scale score cut point updates and domain 3 target updates. So academic achievement, which is domain 1 and domain 3, that stayed the same, that 2017 baseline data. So there was no change there. However, academic growth changed, and that impacted 2A and 3. Originally, like I mentioned, it was the average of 19 and 22, but then it got changed to just 2019. CCMR and graduation, that was now the class of 2021 was going to be used as the baseline. ELP, the TELPAS test, English Language Proficiency, that was 21 and 22 TELPAS baseline data for domains only because they ended up changing the writing portion on TELPAS in 23. And then student achievement, which is STAR only component of domain 3, that did not change. That stayed that 2017 baseline data. Domain 3 had a change to the student groups. So it used to be 14 student groups. It's now 4 student groups. So still that all student group, instead of 7 racial groups, it's now your 2 lowest performing racial groups from the year prior. And then a super group of high focus students, which includes your economically disadvantaged, emergent bilingual, special education, highly mobile, which is comprised of your foster care, migrant and homeless students. And then the minimum group size to be in one of those subgroups went from 25 to 10. So just a little bit more volatility with a lower denominator like that. There was also the introduction of gradated outcomes in 23. So it's not just that the subgroup either met or didn't meet the target. It wasn't yes or no. It was now a gradated outcome. So there was a possibility to earn from anywhere from 0 to 4 points. However, to earn 4 points for a student subgroup, you have to meet the target that was set in 2038. So what we want you to do in 2038, if in 2023 you meet that target 15 years out, then you get the full 4 points for that student group. If you just meet the target for 23 through 27, which is right now, that target stays the same for 5 years. If you meet that target, you get 3 out of the 4 points for that student group. If you don't meet that target, but you show expected growth, you get 2. If you don't meet that interim target, but you show minimal growth, you get 1. If you don't meet the interim target and you don't show any growth and you go backwards, you earn 0 points and this is for each of those 4 subgroups for each component. I included some of the actual methodology from the manual. I'm not going to get into that, but just in case you were curious about what's the difference between expected growth and minimal growth.
Natalie, let me
Yes,
ask
sir.
real quick. So if I'm hearing you right, in order to get the full amount of points, when the student in this category, they will have in order to get 4 points, they have to meet a target for 2037, 38.
Yes. The students in that subgroup, yes, they have to reach a percentage that they're supposed to reach in 2038.
In
to
those
get full credit.
subgroups that are chosen
Yeah.
are our lowest performing subgroups.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
The 2 lowest performing racial. I'm going to move out of domain 3 and then move into just the overall district rating change. This went from calculating the district in the way that we calculated campuses to a proportional weighting methodology. You determine the number of students enrolled at a campus. You sum the number of students enrolled in the district. So the number on the campus divided by the number on the district becomes the proportion that campus will contribute to the district, and then that's their weight. You then take their weight, you multiply that by their scale score, sum up those scale scores, and then that gives you the district, either whichever domain you're calculating, that gives you their score. So this is like a visual of that, and this is the same value as the little house, which the source there is from TEA, and so in this example, there's 5 campuses. That comprise the district there. And so the 5 campuses, campus 1 has 334 kids. The whole district has 2,417 kids. That 334 divided by the 2,417 gives it a weight of 13.8%. Campus 2 has 990. So that 990 divided by that same total for the district gives that campus a weight of 41. It's a larger district that has more weight, larger campus that has more weight. Campus 3, 62, the smallest, it's only going to have a weight of 2.6. Those weights are multiplied by the scale score of those campuses. So even though campus 1 and 2 earn the same scaled score, they're contributing different amounts to the district because of their size. And then after all the calculations are done, TEA added in rating adjustments. And so there's the 3F rule's been around since the 2018 original A to F. And so if you have F ratings in 3 of your 4 domains, then you cannot earn whatever you mathematically earn. So you get reduced down to an F if you have 3 Fs, unless it's domain 1 where you don't have the F. So the example there shows that domain 1's a 59, 2A is a 62, 2B is a 59, 3 is a 57. So that's 3 Fs, right? They're highlighted in red across the 4 domains. However, mathematically, when you multiply 70% of the best of your 1, 2A, or 2B and add it to the 30% of 3, you earn a 61. But you don't get to earn that, even though that was your calculation. You get knocked down to a 59 and you receive an F, even though you were mathematically a D. The new refresh introduced the 3D rule. So if you have 3 Ds across your 4 domains, then even if you mathematically earn a C, you don't get the C, you get dropped down to a D. And then there was a district cap. A district cap, basically, the district can't receive an A overall or in a specific domain if the district has any campuses that have less than a 70 overall or in that specific domain. So some examples are provided. So District A is capped at an 89 for domain 1 because campus Alpha received a 69 in domain 1. Even if it sums up to be an A, it doesn't get the A. It gets dropped down to an 89. District B is capped at an 89 overall because campus Beta received a 69 overall. So again, even if it sums and the math gives them an A, they don't get the A. So just some of those adjustments at the end after all the calculations and the methodology has been applied. So those were all the changes to accountability. So we talked about the timeline of the changes, assessment changes, and then accountability specific changes. And this is probably how people feel about this. Like, oh my gosh, like all this change, there's not consistency. Certainly, statisticians want the consistency from year to year, some stability, so that we feel good about, making comparisons. TEA acknowledged that it's difficult to make comparison with all the changes, and so they said, "Hey, look, we're gonna do a what if for y'all." So we're gonna now move into TEA's what if. So they were transparent and said it's apples to oranges when you compare 22 to 23 because you're talking about a different set of rules. So 22 ratings and 2023 or beyond, they're using different methodologies. They're not going to be comparable. So 23 ratings based on that different subset can't be compared side by side. It's possible that an A campus in 22 that improves in 23 could receive a B rating. So even though they were an A and they improved because of the methodology changes to A to F, they might still drop in their letter grade. And TEA was transparent about that. So the what if was an attempt to apply the new 23 methodology to the 22 results that we had the STAR results for and A to F results for with the old A to F. And it was an attempt to create that apples to apples comparison for ratings published after the A to F refresh. However, it didn't take into account that the test changed. But that's okay. It was an attempt. It was the what if at the time. So, and it was originally scheduled to be released in conjunction with the final 2023 accountability ratings after the manual had been finalized. Obviously, that got postponed. That's still in litigation. TEA went ahead and said, well, we'll give you the what if because we feel like we could give you something. So what that is again, it's kind of like the comparison of we're going to take some ingredients and the top path shows you a recipe, the 2022 recipe, and what the 2022 recipe would result in, this 3-tiered, beautiful coral cake. If we take those same ingredients, but we take a new recipe, the 2023 recipe, it'll result in a not so grand cake. It's not 3-tier, it's a little bit of a cupcake. And so that's what we're going to see. So TEA released the what if, and it was preliminary at first. So our AISD, we were actually an 85 in 2022 with our 2022 results. When they did the preliminary what if with our same 22 data, but the new refresh methodology, we went from an 85 to a 74. So that was an 11-point drop. Well, you all know that we always look into things and we run our own internal analyses, and we could not replicate this 74. And when we can't, we reach out to TEA and we say, hey, what are we doing wrong here with our internal calculations? So we weren't doing anything wrong, and actually there was an error there in the preliminary. And so I'm glad we looked into it, and I'm glad we reached out because then they ended up re-releasing the what if analysis. They made an adjustment. They corrected their incorrect calculation that they had for the EOC testers, and that was where we couldn't get it to match up. So they re-released those to all campuses across the state. So it was a good catch. They also changed the baseline data from that 2019 and 22 to just 2019. They acknowledged the inflated growth of 22. So they changed the Domain 2A cut scores, the Domain 3 cut scores, and then also the Domain 3 goals for growth in reading and math. The TELPAS writing had a progress calculation change, adjustment to the minimum number of indicators required in Domain 3. And then they adjusted AEA, student achievement calculation. That didn't have AEAs, there's not many across the state, but it was a change nonetheless. So when they did that, and then they republished the what if, our district went from an 85, and again, this is not, the change did not change our rating. It showed us what it would look like with the new rules. So our rating of an 85 with those rules, we dropped to a 78. So we lost 7 points with the same data, just with the new rules applied. So, but then 23 was not able to come out. We still don't know what our 23 ratings for any of our campuses or for our district are. No campuses or districts know that across the state. However, if 22 to 23 was going to drop, and the 23 rules remained fairly consistent, but we also have a test change with decreases at the approaches level across the state. I think it's fair to anticipate that campuses and districts across the state are going to decrease in 24 from whatever was their rating in 22. And again, new test, refreshed accountability system with those increased cut scores for domains and targets for student groups. So, we believe that we will see a lower rating than an 85 with our 24 ratings and when they release those in 2 weeks. Regardless, our focus is on student achievement, and parents received information on how to obtain their individual student scores from both TEA's Family Portal and the Parent Self-Serve in our team system as soon as they were available in early June. And so together, campuses, administrators, teachers, parents, we're going to focus on our individual students and their learning needs. So wanted to just republish for any parents viewing. If they have not seen their student scores, they can view those here, the Parent Self-Serve Portal and Teams, or they can go to the TEA Family Portal. And that's the end of this presentation, if y'all have any questions.
Trustees with comments or questions? Ms. Fowler.
Thank you, President Chapa. Let me ask, it says 75% of the writing was scored by automated scoring. And I know that there were a lot of writings that received zeros.
Yes.
Do you think those students actually would have scored a 0 or a 1 if a human graded it? Or is there an issue with the automated grading?
So the categories are more rigorous now. And so I don't think we can blame the machine. I mean, the ASE is based on the categories that are input by the human. There's validation there that's occurring where 25% of the submissions are also graded by humans. If there's more than a 1 point difference in the ASE after it's run through twice, it goes to humans to regrade it, and whatever the humans decide is what the grade is. I think it's the fact that the categories are more difficult, which is the reason why we're seeing, I think it's something like 40% across the state of students earned a 0 across grade levels on the extended constructed response. We'll get a validation on that number, though.
Natalie,
So,
can I
yes, sir.
add to that? I think also the fact that for the first time, 0 is included in all of
Yes.
this. So if this was off topic, for the first time, students didn't get any points at all. And so if a student wrote a beautiful essay, but it wasn't on the topic that was on the test, that score for the first time now gets a 0. And that's another change that we're experiencing all of this grading as well.
Because in the old system, that would have been a 1.
Thank you. All right, now if y'all will just bear with me for a minute, this is Melody Unfiltered. So, I'm frustrated and, to be honest, more than annoyed that we are having to take the time to discuss a test that has, in my opinion, no real significance. STAR 2.0 is a waste of students' time, teachers' time, and our time up here.
There appears to be a motive behind the design of the test, and that motive seems to be to try and make public schools look bad. I believe in assessments, but assessments need to be fair, and they need to be actually prove what a student has learned. STAR 2.0 is neither fair nor accurate. I believe we need to stop focusing so much on STAR scores and actually allow our teachers to teach and assess their students appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fowler. Mr. Wilbanks.
Thank you, Ms. Fowler. I like the unfiltered melody. And thank you, Natalie, for the refresh on this and all the changes. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And it makes our job so much more difficult as trustees because we want to know relative to the rest of the state and our peers, especially since it's tied, and since we know statistically that the scores are highly correlated to ECHO status. But with all these changes, it becomes pretty much impossible to compare longitudinally. Are we going like this objectively, or are we going like this? And it's just not only for the very valid frustrations that Ms. Fowler stated, but just for the ability for us to do our job that TA expects us as trustees and for our staff. And the one question I had is, I was all for us going online for it because one of the complaints about this test is it's hard. It doesn't provide any useful data for those teachers or those students when they're already graduated to the next grade and it's well into the next year before we even get the final results. But now that we've been 2 years online, has that time frame shrank?
Yes. So, and I think that TEA was intentional about the way they scheduled testing. So putting reading first, knowing that there's an extended constructed response. I believe the ASE was intended for that efficiency of grading that many written responses across the entire state of Texas. And so, but 23, there was just such a delay because of the change in the test and the performance level setting. That takes time to make sure that there's a balance equated from 22 to 23. I believe that was in their intention. So certainly it came out faster in 24 than 23 because the redesign happened in 23.
No, but it was still before the preliminary, before parents even had access. It was still after the school year ended, and they took the test back in April.
No, right. You're absolutely right about that.
So, and we've already made plans for summer school and remediation.
Yep.
And it's kind of hard to make those plans without tests to validate which kids need to be remediated. Now, teachers are smart. They know.
Yes.
Based on our map and more reliable, more formative online tests that we use as screeners, who those kids are, but still the usefulness of that test in giving teachers actual data to do data-driven instruction is useless.
It's just, it's not timely. It's not, I don't anticipate they're going to get it fast enough to where they can have it during the same school year. I don't think so.
So you mentioned also that, of course, there's the lawsuit that prevented the 2023 results from being the accountability part, the A through F. We have the raw score data file, I believe. That's the raw score data file for all schools is publicly available online, but the A through F is all that's been withheld. Do we know if they're planning to release that? Or do we have an update on where that stands legally?
I don't know if Dennis knows any more than I do. The last I'd heard that is still being litigated right now, and we don't have a timeline for that.
And it's anticipated that it may never come
Correct. That is correct.
So we won't have a valid measure of when this year's A through F comes out, any way to compare that to did our kids make progress, or did they really did a campus fall? Because again, 2022 was overly inflated.
Right.
and is not a good measure. And
Well,
so really, and there was no 21 and there was no 20. So we have to go all the way back to 2019 as you guys went out to TA. So again, not very useful. I had one more note. Sorry, I have to get my glasses on. No, it's just, again, frustration. I'm all for accountability, just like Ms. Fowler. But this is a flawed system. But the other point I was going to make is, but we do know what our raw score is. And we do know where, based on that data, where are our campuses that need support. So where are we in developing a plan based on, and this is not for you, this is, I know Dr. Wirtz is not here, but maybe Dr. Smith can answer. So it is what it is. We have our scores, we have scores with our peer groups across the state. And so we can do some benchmarking to have an idea and engage from, are we slipping? Are we going like this? Are we on a glide path to meet our target? And if we're not, we're on those campuses where we're not and where we're maybe slipping, what are we doing now to prep and adjust course?
Yeah, and we will be presenting to y'all more detailed information, specifically diving into the data after things are publicly released from TEA, and then talking about action steps from there. But I can also assure trustees that right now across the district, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in my superintendent's report, we have teachers and administrators gathering together, looking at data, analyzing what next steps are, and making sure that we have a path moving forward. I just was there when our academic services department was working with principals and instructional coaches over the last week, specifically talking about the level of academic work that sits in front of the student. So example is, you can have a great lesson that's aligned to the TEKS that you're projecting to the students, but then if you give them a task that's in front of them that isn't at the appropriate level of rigor of the TEK, then that practice that the student is doing, the actual act that the student is doing, doesn't help the student progress in their learning. And so working with things like the level of academic rigor that students are faced with in the classroom and ensuring that it's aligned with the TEKS that we're supposed to teach in the class is just one example along the way of the things that we're doing right now. There are going to be targeted response things based on the data, but I want to echo real quickly what Ms. Fowler said in all of this. I think it's time for us to really talk about measures for us as a district that we value and not necessarily the star. The hope that I had in the presentation that you heard tonight was that, one, you would get a clear message that the 2022 results, the last ones published, are entirely different than what's going to be published coming up here. And honestly, the 22 results weren't even complete results because they didn't give D or Fs to campuses. You got to go all the way back to 2019 and all of this. So that old apples to oranges is a very, very true statement, and I think Natalie very effectively showed that to you all. I think that's a really important piece of the puzzle. But what I also need you to hear is that mess, that shifting mess that TEA has created over time, we have to be better than that. And it's our job to take that data, use it for what it's worth, put it in its rightful spot, but that does not define the entire experience that we want our students to have in Arlington ISD for the future. And I think it's time for us to really start to be able to talk about, measure, and progress in the areas that we know matter to our community because they're not reflected in these scores or the accountability system that we have. I think that's going to be big work going forward, but I want to assure the board that that does not mean we're going to ignore this data. In the end, we're going to take responsibility, use the data for what it's worth, and ensure that every student is growing in our system.
Thank you. I think it's important that we create a measure of our students that is well-rounded and accurately reflects their growth. But this is the accountability system we have, and we've got to live by it. other districts are living. We're all being measured by the same stick. And so going forward, I mean, we are required by the state. It's not perfect, but we've got to figure out how to use it to accurately gauge, because we're required to. We're required to adopt HB3 goals. It's not perfect, but it's what we've got to live with. And I think there is, you know, it's not perfect, but the fact that everyone is playing the same game by the same rules, even though they change the rules, they change them for everybody, that there is some useful data that we can extract to answer those hard questions. Are we going in the direction we need to as a district or at a campus level, or are we not? And, but I agree with you, Dr. Smith. We also need a more well-rounded measure of what student success looks like.
Thank you, Mr. Wilbanks. Ms. Richardson.
Just to make it awkward, let me open my Diet Coke right now. Okay. Dr. Smith, you interrupted Dr. Lopez at one point, and I want to rewind back to that because it really stuck with me. Looking at page 11 with the 23 A through F, domain 3. So the way my brain works, keep going. Come on. I'm looking at 23A through F, refresh domain 3.
Oh, gosh. I went way too
so close. And it's okay. I don't even need that to, I just want to lock in on this real quick. The way that my brain works is real life examples. So when you stood here and talked about this, and then when Dr. Smith laid out, so hold on, Dr. Lopez, rewind. You're saying that to get the full 4 points, they have to hit something in 2037, 2038. So tell me if I'm wrong on this, how I'm thinking about this.
Okay.
Dr. Lopez, I have a 13-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
So she will be 26 years old when the new kids should be hitting the 2037, 38 target. So you're telling me the kids who are not even, they're 1 year old and 13 years, she's gonna be 26, and you're asking our 13-year-olds to hit a goal 13 years away? Not you.
Not me.
No. Sorry. I'm sorry. I mean the royal we, the royal you. But when I'm putting this in like a big picture thing, when those new things are being evaluated, my 13-year-old's gonna be 26. That's crazy, you guys, that we are that far away and asking kids in these 4 groups that are already disadvantaged in so many different ways. Now we're going to judge you, and we also want you to do something that we're not even expecting for 13 more years. I don't get that logic. And I know you don't either.
Yeah.
I think I say it more to reiterate of how ridiculous this comes across. And when Dr. Smith said it, and I thought about just real life terms, what does that look like? What does that mean? That just doesn't make sense. So when we talk about the apples to oranges, Dr. Lopez, when you say that there's a school that would have an A rating in 2022, and they could improve, they are doing exactly what we ask.
Yep.
Everything that we hold them accountable to, please do this, please do that, please do, and yet you could receive a B or lower.
Right, and the students' scores could improve
Right.
on the 23 test from 2022, and yet that campus could be a B because of the new A to F methodology.
My heart actually hurts over this. And the reason is we talk about culture in our schools. And we want people to feel good. And we want them to know that we believe in them. But yet when they are told, oh, you're not good enough this grade. Or we hear from people in our community that say, well, that school is a C district. They are a C-rated school. People don't want to move into that community. Well, actually, they're not. They raised their scores. They've done great. They've done one. But instead, we're letting it define us. And so to know that as a board that we are all on the same page, that we don't want these to define us anymore. And instead of, I think of it as the tail wagging the dog, or is the dog wagging the tail? And I'm ready for us as a board to take ownership and say, that is fine. If that's what TA is going to do, that's fine. But that is not the narrative that we're going to allow to dictate who we are. It's not the narrative we're going to allow to dictate our students or our staff. They deserve better. They don't need to be beat down on this. So I'm glad that you showed one test, one score. There is so much more to Arlington ISD than this right here. Thank you for the context that you gave tonight, Dr. Lopez, was outstanding. So much more than just data, but these real life examples that our community is going to ask and want to know about. And you explain this in a way that we, no matter what, if you have an education background or not, we understand. Thank you for helping us be able to put into words. This stinks sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's just going to be it just stinks. But man, I'm really glad to look at people who sit up here who say that that's not what we want our kids to be judged by or our staff, and that we are willing to put our ship in a new direction. And we're going to be proud to do that. So thank you for this information.
No, absolutely. You're welcome.
Mr. Mike?
Dr. Lopez, thank you for the presentation. It was
Yes,
very informative. I do have a few questions that maybe you can answer
Yep.
for me. When we look at the 2023 8th Ref refresh for the domain 1 and 3 for the CCMR, these IBCs, we know that they phased them out and they limited the awarding for the completions. And I'm trying to figure out, maybe you know, is the reasoning for phasing them out because there was a change in the workforce requirements? Was it too easy, or what was the change in that?
My understanding is that they were trying to align that to industry availability and what would be needed for the workforce now and moving forward. So some that might have been more antiquated as far as what will you use that IBC for in the changing economy moving forward. TEA decided some of those IBCs needed to be phased out for that reason.
And then we look at the cut points. I think that's a 28
yes.
point increase. Were you given, were you given any data on why they increased 28 points?
No, and that's just for A. It was actually 30 points for B, various other 30s. I can't remember the exact values, but yeah, so that they all, to earn an A, B, C, D, that all of that went upward 28 to 32 points.
Yeah,
As far as why that increase, why not phase in an increase? We suggested that, districts requested that, but the decision was made that no, to be college, career, military ready and prepared for your immediate future, TEA was like, we need to put this standard in place now. So that was it.
And then the one thing that stuck out in your report, the overall rating changes, where you talked about the what if.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay,
that one.
yeah.
So the one issue that I have there is T comes out with a rating that they say, we've looked at everything, here's the rating, but it was wrong.
So yes, their what if, like, what would your 22 score have been if we applied the 23 rules? It wasn't wrong, it was preliminary.
Well, I think if you go to court and put something in court and it's that, you're gonna get called out on it. At least T will, you know. My worry on that, right, is we're relying on data from an agency, and we've pointed out that, hey, your preliminary information is incorrect, and we have to point out that it's incorrect. I wonder what else is incorrect in the data that they're pushing out for us to utilize. And I know you're a data person.
And we do our own validation internally in our office, and we haven't seen much that was wrong over the years. So when we do find something that we can't get the same number for, we reach out to them. And I say, ask them 3 times. Ask them, get an answer, ask them again, get another answer, and get that third answer. I like to triangulate responses because sometimes you do get different responses. And so, but that's not common that they make mistakes, in my experience, when we do our own internal validation to what they have posted.
And with all these changes, and with your group on working the data so rigorously for the school district, how difficult does it make the job for you and your staff?
Oh, to do the projections?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a department. I mean, that's a team in my department.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is dedicated to analytics and accountability. Yeah, but that's 50% of the team's job is doing those projections, and then also there's other things that go into that too. So it's not just June taking up time. It's throughout the year that we work on various aspects of that.
Any other trustees with comments or questions? I have just a couple, Dr.
Yes, sir.
Lopez. On the rules that there's a slide with rating adjustments. This is the one with the 3F, 3D rule and the district cap. I had a question on the district cap.
Okay.
Does that apply regardless of the size of the district? So even if the district has, say, 70-plus campuses, one of them falls into this bucket in the district overall would otherwise be an A, they're otherwise prevented from being an A because of one campus?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I had a question about, Mr. Wilbanks used the phrase "measured by the same stick," and we hear that a lot because everybody does take the same test. But my question is even though everyone's taking the same test, are there aspects of the test, or are there things that there are aspects of the changes that were more recently made that have a disproportionate effect on different types of districts?
I would certainly think that you could opine that the online adjustment impacts your socioeconomically disadvantaged students who may not have devices, Wi-Fi, that connectivity, as much access to technology as maybe more affluent peers. That certainly could be an impact.
I know this has been a talking point for as long as standardized tests have been around, and we know that this is something that happens, but that standardized tests generally have predictable outcomes with socioeconomically disadvantaged students.
Yes.
Is that still, despite these changes, the case with this test?
Yes.
I figured that would be the answer. I want to make a point in putting this in context, and Dr. Smith made a point I was going to make, that you had to go back to 2019 for the last time that we actually had really a valid, I think, rating for this district. And if you go back just a little bit before that, I had not been on the board long when A through F came around. And TEA, I think, did a similar what-if way back when we were shifting from the prior accountability system to the A through F system, and there was a year where they went back and looked at the last year of the old system where I think it was met standard or you didn't, and then there were some, I think, up to 7 different academic distinctions that a campus could get or district could get. And when they did that, and I actually mapped it, and if you looked at those preliminary ratings back then, when we moved to A through F, it was a predictable outcome where all of the older suburban, urban districts that had high numbers of socioeconomically disadvantaged students in DFW were kind of concentrated in a bubble of low ratings, and all the more affluent, newer, socioeconomically more homogeneous districts around us, they got the high scores. And that's exactly what happened. That's still what's going on. But to Dr. Smith's point, when we had those results in 2019, we actually were one of the highest growth districts in the state. And that was coming off of a year, the first year on A through F, where we didn't do so well that first year. And then all of a sudden we were the second, I think that year we were the second highest district for growth with our students in the state in academic performance. If you go back the year before, the first year on A through F, where we took a dip that year, the last year we were on the old system, and maybe getting some of my numbers wrong, but when we had the system where you could get up to 7 academic distinctions. Over 40% of the campuses in this district got at least one of those distinctions, and we had several campuses that got all 7.
Yeah.
And so my question, when we switch to A through F, which is still my question, is what does this data tell us about our district, and what district are we? Because if we look at the last year of the old system, we're just almost half of our campuses have academic distinctions. If you look at the first year of A through F, we look like we're a C district. If you look at 2019, we look at one of the best improving districts in the state, and we got a solid B, and we were on an upward trajectory very strongly. And now we've got this new system coming along that's not just going to make us look like we weren't as strong as we were the last time we got scored fairly, and a lot of other districts in the state. And incidentally, it's happening at the same time that the state is pushing a school voucher system. So maybe there's an incentive for public school districts to not look so strong this next year because they think that that's coming along. They thought it was coming along in 2023, and I actually, my personal opinion is that they were trying to rush along the new accountability system to match it, have it coincide with what a voucher bill they thought they were going to get that they didn't get, but that's just my personal opinion. But that's what they think is going to happen this year. But to Dr. Smith's point, Ms. Fowler's point, Secretary Richardson, I think everybody else who spoke up here made the same point, is at some point, how much longer are we going to be strung along by this game of this system, no matter how many times they redo it, depending on which year you want to look at and which results you look at, either we're a C district or we're one of the best performing districts for districts that have the socioeconomic profile of districts in the state. So which is it? And so at some point, we have to get off the roller coaster, and there has to be a better way to evaluate how our students are actually performing. And recently, there have been billboards in the area, and I've seen them too, that say something along the lines of, well, your kid may have good grades, but are they really reading on grade level? Or are they actually performing on grade level? And we've seen a misuse of some of the data that's come out of this system because of the titles that are used in the scoring. And so one of them is meets, right? So we have did not meet, approaches, meets, and masters. And I recently was down at the State Board of Education, and this misuse of this data is continuing in different places. And so people will take swipes at public school districts by saying, well, only 30 or 40% of your kids meet their grade level. But that, as we know, despite its name, approaches also means that the student is on grade, will be on grade level. So we're seeing this system changed in ways that can be manipulated. The titles that are associated with the system can be manipulated. So I do think it's time for us to think more holistically about something that's more stable, because we like stability to be able to have a fair evaluation system to compare from year to year, instead of these roller coaster changes that the complexity of what you presented tonight. I mean, how do you explain to a parent or somebody moving to this area this system that by just tweaking this thing here or that thing there, we're either a C district or we're a higher performing district? It's really frustrating, and so I look forward to Dr. Smith and his staff's plan on how we can engage in a real discussion about community accountability, because this accountability system, I think it's been in doubt for a long time, but its flaws are becoming more and more apparent, and I'm really looking forward to getting away from that.
President Chapa, I'm sorry, I have one more.
Yes, Ms. Fowler.
Thank you. Let me ask Dr. Lopez, with the new question types, the technology enhanced, to me, students that are more tactile might have an advantage over students that aren't. Is that fair to say?
I mean, that's certainly a concern.
Yeah, because I know I wouldn't be that tactile where I can drag, and I'm just more direct and focused. So by including these new question types, I think it's putting a lot of our students at a disadvantage that are not tactile learners. And that's another thing that bothers me about this new test. Thank you, Dr. Lopez.
Yes, ma'am.
President Chopra, members of the board, thank you for your time tonight, and thank you, Dr. Lopez, for presenting. Again, goal tonight was to make sure that prior to the release of upcoming scores and accountability ratings, that you as a board know and understand the changes that we've been experiencing over the past 5 years. And again, I think the point was made clearly. The last year without interruption to an accountability rating was 2019. I think that we have to keep that in mind when the scores are released. I applaud you as a board for being able to sit here and say we're more than the scores. And I think now is the time for us to start looking forward for the future. So thank you for taking the time to look back, but we're excited about what's in front of us.
All right, we will move on to our action agenda items tonight. We have two. We'll start with action item A, consider designation of official delegates to the Texas Association of School Boards 2024 Delegate Assembly. Ms. Richardson.
Thank you, President Chapa. Thank you, President Chapa. I move that the board select David Wilbanks as our AISD delegate and Leanne Haynes as our alternate delegate to represent Arlington at the Texas Association of School Boards 2024 Delegate Assembly to be held in September 2024.
All right, I have a motion for Ms. Richardson. Do I have a second? I have a second from, I'll give that one to Ms. Fowler.
Oh, you'll give it.
So that's a motion from Secretary Richardson, a second from Ms. Fowler. Trustees will vote. I have a vote of 6 in the affirmative, 1 abstention from Mr. Wilbanks. The motion carries. So our delegate to the 2024 Delegate Assembly will be Mr. Wilbanks, and our alternate will be Ms. Haynes.
Thank you, guys.
All right, we'll move on to action item B, consider endorsement of candidates for the Texas Association of School Boards Board of Directors. Mr. Wilbanks.
I move that the board endorse Stephen Newcomb from Eagle Mountain, Saginaw ISD for the Regional 11 position D of the TASB board.
Thank you, Mr. Wilbanks. Do I have a second? I'll give that one to Mr. Mike. We have a motion, sorry, I blanked there. We have a motion for Mr. Wilbanks. We have a second for Mr. Mike. We'll move on to vote. All 7 trustees vote in the affirmative. The motion carries. The board will endorse Mr. Newcomb for the Texas Association of School Boards Board of Directors. That is the end of our action items for this evening. We'll move on to our consent agenda tonight. Consent agenda is the portion of our agenda where we group together items that are generally routine items, and we will vote on all of them at the same time. Dr. Smith, do we have anything for consent tonight?
No, sir.
Trustees, are there any comments or questions on consent? Seeing none, we'll hold. Mr. Wilbanks.
I move for adoption of the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Wilbanks. Mr. Wilbanks has moved for adoption of the consent agenda. Do I have a second? Ms. Fowler has the second. So motion by Mr. Wilbanks, a second by Ms. Fowler. We'll move on to vote on the consent agenda. All 7 trustees vote in the affirmative. Consent passes this evening. We're moving very quickly now through our agenda, and we will get to our forum for non-agenda items. Ms. Crossnow, do we have any speakers registered for non-agenda items tonight? Having no speakers, we'll move on to our superintendent's report. Dr. Smith.
Trustees, I'll move through this quickly because I told everyone we'd be out of here at 7:50 tonight. Just joking. I'd like to share some information about the exciting news that's happening in our district right now. There's a lot of great things going on. First, as you know, we have more than 50,000 students that are set to join us on August 14th for the first day of school. And that includes thousands of our littlest learners. I want to thank our early childhood team for their work in registering these first-time students. Between our efforts at Cookin Educational Center and our 4th annual Pre-K Palooza, we registered 600 people in person for an amazing pre-K program this year. Everyone knows we're in the middle of the Olympics, and Wimbish World Language Academy recently got into the spirit by hosting a language immersion camp. The campers at Wimbish were able to compete against learning lag by honing their French their French and Spanish language skills each morning with classes and activities like practicing Olympic sports and working on their culinary skills. And while I'm talking about camps, our Dan Dipert Career and Technical Center hosted the second, Camp Exploration. This camp is designed for our 7th, 8th, and 9th grade students to help expose them to the options that await in their academic careers and beyond. In addition to learning about those options, they got to hear from local businesses to find out what awaits them after high school. And another great camp this year was held at Young Junior High earlier with the return of Quantum for All Camp. The camp, which features teachers from across the country, allowed the campers to take a deeper dive into the quantum world while seeing how their experiments work in real time. It's further proof that we offer camps for everyone in Arlington ISD. Congratulations to Arlington College and Career High School senior Miriam Silva. She was part of a team of budding engineers and scientists who created a lunar landing system and was rewarded with a free trip to NASA's Johnson Space Center later this month. She worked throughout the school year to earn the honor after getting an appointment from a legislator as part of NASA's Texas High School Aerospace Scholars Program. Congratulations, Miriam. I also want to congratulate David Lewis, our Food and Nutrition Services team, and our culinary students in the By Students, For Students program for their work in making Tuesday's first ever Taste of Arlington ISD such a success. We had nearly 1,000 people from our community come to Seguin High School and sample the tasty treats that originated in our culinary classes and are now part of our school menus. It may have been the first time we've done it, but I know it won't be the last. Also, yes, let's give him a round of applause, please. Also, I don't know if we have the slides for this, but I wanted to make a couple of notes along the way as well. That I wanted to thank our staff that is out and about launching professional learning throughout our district right now. Throughout the week this week, I had the opportunity to be in front of new teachers that are new to the profession, to teachers who are experienced teachers but new to Arlington ISD, to our coaches who got professional learning yesterday from amazing leaders in our school district. And a couple of the pictures that I wanted to share here, if you go back a slide for me real quickly, you see today, I took this picture actually today, Dr. Hill in the Arlington Police Department went through tabletop safety drills with all of our administrators in the school district in our athletic center today. That professional learning is about safety for our students and staff, and we're excited that these things are happening in our system. Top right-hand side, about a week and a half ago, I had the amazing opportunity to go talk to our custodial and ground staff and our facilities team. Over 600 employees were at Sam Houston High School that day, and we were able to talk about things like how they continuously improve and going above and beyond, and they rewarded the efforts of the staff that we have in front of us at that time. I was extremely impressed with Kelly and his team, Corey, all of the people there that did amazing work with that group. And then finally, down at the bottom, as I mentioned earlier this evening, we had administrators and instructional coaches working with our academic services team, talking specifically about the tasks that students are that have in front of them on a regular basis. That level of rigor, the level of academic challenge that a student has on those tasks is extremely important, and it's an important piece for our administrators to ensure that they see those when they're visiting classrooms moving forward. I also want to celebrate two of our trustees that are here at the dais right now. I had the opportunity to spend a couple of days with both Leanne and Larry in diving into amazing governance conversations with colleagues across the state. And this was really about best practice for school districts regarding governance in the first annual School Board Institute that Holdsworth is holding. Larry and Leanne represented Arlington ISD well, and I wanted to just point out that that notion of continuous improvement, we see it, that our staff is taking that step forward all the time, but we're equally thankful for our board taking that step forward all the time as well. And that concludes my superintendent's report for this week.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Do we have any trustees with school board reports this evening? Seeing none, I will therefore call this meeting adjourned at 8:27 p.m.